Gary Dale Larson was born in 1958 to parents Stanley and Marguerite. By 1986, at the age of 27, Gary lived in Edmond, Oklahoma, with his fiancée when a horrible tragedy occurred. On the night of August 16th, Gary and his fiancée were preparing for bed when they heard an unusual noise. Concerned, Gary went to investigate, but strangely never returned. When his fiancée followed to check on him, she was confronted by a man who attacked her. The intruder, armed with a knife, overpowered her, tied her up, and sexually assaulted her repeatedly over the course of several hours. The assailant ransacked the house during the ordeal, eventually leaving her bound in a closet. Summoning incredible courage, she managed to free herself and call the police. When the detective arrived on the scene, he found Gary's fiancée standing in the doorway, visibly shaken, with blood on her body. Inside the house, he discovered a gruesome scene. Gary had been stabbed 24 times in the chest and stomach. Unfortunately, the investigation would be overshadowed by the Edmond Post Office massacre, which occurred on August 20th and claimed the lives of 14 people. By the time detectives could resume work on Gary's murder, crucial leads had gone cold, and potential witnesses in the neighborhood had forgotten significant details. As a result, the case languished for years without resolution. 18 years later, on April 5, 2004, a breakthrough came when Scott Eggleston, a resident of the same neighborhood, reported a peeping Tom. Eggleston's motion detector had been triggered, and when he investigated, he discovered a barefoot man lying on the ground. Eggleston chased and detained the man until police arrived. Once in custody, he was identified as Jonathan Scott Graham. The detective, still haunted by Gary's case, was struck by the eerie similarities between Graham's behavior and details from the 1986 murder. Bloody footprints left at the crime scene were re-examined and matched to Graham's bare footprints. Further investigation revealed Graham's deeply disturbing history. In 2000, he had been apprehended in Waco, Texas, as a peeping Tom carrying what they called a sex bag, which was filled with black clothing, gloves, duct tape, knives, sex toys, lubricants, and other items. Graham admitted to being a voyeur and claimed the bag was for fantasies, but his behavior and possessions raised significant concerns. The FBI had profiled Gary's killer, and it matched closely with Graham's actions. When DNA evidence from the sexual assault kit collected in 1986 was finally tested, it confirmed he was in fact Gary's killer. Although the statute of limitations for the sexual assault had expired, the DNA evidence solidified Graham's connection to the crime. He was then charged with first-degree murder, first-degree sexual assault, and first-degree burglary. To avoid the death penalty, he pleaded guilty to all charges.
Last year, I didn't even know how many times I had stabbed him because I was, so surprised.
What did you like about it?
Control. Doing whatever I wanted to do.
In exchange for his plea, prosecutors agreed not to seek capital punishment, and Graham waived his rights to appeal in a jury trial. He was then sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. James Harvey Hutson was born on May 15, 1980, to Jean and Mary Lou. Tragically, James lost his father at just 9 years old, a loss that deepened the bond between him and his mother. By the time James was 17, the pair lived in Kingsport, Tennessee, where he was described as a bright and energetic young man known for his kind heart, quick wit, and infectious personality. He had a way of lighting up any room he entered and was deeply loved by his family and friends. As he balanced school, relationships, and dreams for the future, James's life seemed full of promise, until that promise was violently stolen in a nightmarish crime that would haunt his family for decades. On the night of September 6, 1997, a crazed individual entered their home, stabbed James to death, and sexually assaulted Mary. Despite her injuries, she managed to call 911. DNA evidence was collected at the scene and submitted for testing, but at the time, no match was found. With no leads, the case grew cold, leaving Mary to grieve the loss of her son. Sadly, she passed away just 8 months later due to the weight loss she suffered as a result of the trauma she endured. In 2023, nearly 3 decades after the crime, the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office reopened the case, armed with advances in forensic science. With the help of Othram, investigators were able to identify the suspect as George Scott Robinson. They then obtained a fresh DNA sample and confirmed the match. In November 2024, Robinson was arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder in connection with James's death, but was not charged with the sexual assault of Mary due to the statute of limitations. When authorities attempted to arrest him at his apartment in Kingsport, he barricaded himself inside and refused to cooperate. The SWAT team was called in to negotiate, but after several tense hours, they forced their way inside. Robinson then shot himself, but the wound was not fatal, and he was treated at a local hospital. At this time, Robinson remains in jail, awaiting the outcome of the case. Lela Mae Orr Johnston was born on August 2, 1907, in Texas. By the time she was 68, Lela had built a fulfilling life in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, where she lived with her husband, Don Johnston. Married for 51 years, the couple shared a quiet life in their duplex near North Robinson Avenue and Northwest 26th Street. Lela was a dedicated professional who had spent her career serving in the state welfare department, helping those in need. After decades of commitment to public service, she finally retired, but her wish for some long overdue rest and relaxation would be sadly cut short. 2 months after retiring, on May 14, 1976, Lela was discovered by her neighbor, partially nude in her bedroom. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death. Despite efforts by Oklahoma City Police Department, investigators were unable to identify a suspect, and the case eventually went cold. Sadly, her husband, Don, passed away 4 years later without ever seeing her case solved. In 2004, DNA was entered into CODIS, but no matches were found. Then, in May 2023, nearly 50 years after her murder, investigators, with the help of DNA Labs International, were able to identify her killer as Charles O. Droke, who would have been 28 years old at the time of Lela's murder. Droke had no known prior connection to Lela and had never been linked to the crime during the original investigation. However, justice would never be served because he was killed by his own brother in January 1989. Droke's brother, recently released from prison, claimed the murder was self-defense after the two got into a confrontation. The brother was convicted of the murder, but took his own life the day after his sentencing. Russell Steger was born on October 13, 1947, and grew up in Durham, North Carolina. By the age of 40, he was a respected high school baseball coach, celebrated for his warm personality and unwavering dedication to his students. Outside of his professional life, Russell was known for his trusting nature and strong moral character, traits that made the tragic events of his life even more shocking. By 1988, Russell had remarried after the end of his first marriage. His new wife, Barbara Steger, appeared to be a supportive partner on the surface. However, beneath the facade, their marriage was riddled with issues, including financial troubles and suspicions of infidelity. Russell, who was perceptive despite his trusting nature, grew increasingly wary of Barbara's behavior. He then confided in his ex-wife, JoLynn Snow, sharing his fears and asking her to investigate if anything suspicious ever happened to him. Tragically, Russell's intuitions were spot on. In the early hours of February 1, 1988, Russell was fatally shot in the head while he slept beside Barbara. She called 911 in a panic, claiming the shooting was a terrible accident. According to Barbara, the handgun Russell kept under his pillow had accidentally discharged when she jostled it in her sleep. At first, her explanation seemed plausible, and the incident was treated as an unfortunate mishap. However, as investigators delved deeper, troubling details began to emerge. JoLynn Snow came forward with critical information, revealing that Russell had recently expressed fear for his safety. Most chilling, he had recorded an audio tape detailing his suspicions, leaving behind a haunting message that would later play a pivotal role in unraveling the case. The investigation into Barbara's past uncovered a disturbing pattern. A decade earlier, her first husband, James Larry Ford, had also died under mysterious circumstances in March 1978. His death, which occurred in Randolph County, had been ruled an accident at the time. However, the eerie similarities to Russell's case raised serious doubts and led to speculation that Larry's death might not have been accidental. As forensic evidence was examined, it became clear that Barbara's account of the shooting did not align with the facts. The position and trajectory of the gunshot were inconsistent with an accidental discharge. Investigators concluded that Russell's death was not a tragic mishap, but a premeditated act of cold-blooded murder. Barbara Stager was then arrested and charged with first-degree murder. At trial, the audio tape left behind by Russell was a chilling testament to Barbara's cruel actions. Barbara was convicted of first-degree murder and initially sentenced to death. However, her sentence was later commuted to life imprisonment. Despite multiple parole hearings over the years, including in 2009 and 2018, Barbara has been consistently denied release. She remains incarcerated at the North Carolina Correctional Institution for Women in Raleigh. Some have since speculated that Barbara may be a serial killer, as Larry Ford's death mirrors the circumstances surrounding Russell's murder. However, authorities have never been able to gather sufficient evidence to charge her in connection with his death. Sarah Jane Carr was born on August 28, 1969, in Phoenix, Arizona, and grew up to be a devoted mother of 6. Known for her strength and compassion, Sarah was a hardworking woman who tirelessly provided for her children. Despite life's challenges, she maintained a kind heart and a deep love for her family. That is until a horrible tragedy cut her life short. On the night of July 9, 1998, just before midnight, police responded to a 911 call reporting a shooting at a residential home.
Who shot her? It's a man. I need to know who shot her. We're trying to look for a suspect on our way there.
When officers arrived, they discovered Sarah had been fatally shot. A witness inside the home recounted a harrowing encounter, revealing that the shooter, known only by the nickname G, had argued with Sarah before the confrontation escalated. The argument tragically ended when he fatally shot Sarah and fled the scene. While the witness provided a detailed physical description, the shooter's true identity remained a mystery for years. In 2016, with the help of advanced forensic technology, investigators were able to identify the suspect as 58-year-old Javier Lorenzano Nunez, who had numerous aliases and nicknames. He spent years on the run and even spent 6 months in a California prison in 2011 before finally ending up in Mexico. Unfortunately, this caused a delay in his arrest while the U.S. worked with Mexican law enforcement to have him extradited. Finally, on October 23, 2024, Nunez was extradited to Phoenix and arrested on charges of premeditated first-degree murder. As of December 2024, he remains in jail, awaiting the outcome of the case.